Hello and welcome to the second episode of Tang Soo Do Focus. This is a podcast based on all things related to the Korean martial art of Tang Soo Do, and I'm your host, pseudonym Stephen Paterini. And today our point of interest will be the opening protocol of a Tang Soo Do class and the student creed that we recite each day at the beginning of class. So, Tang Soo Do, of course, is a martial art, and martial meaning military means that we share many characteristics with military organizations, such as the different ranks and certainly different protocol and ways, rules for behavior. And one of the first things you would notice if you were a beginning student in a Tang Soo Do school would be that as you approach the floor and enter the dojang for training, we always bow before entering. To me, that bow signifies a recognition that this is, to me, almost a sacred space, certainly a space that we know is designated for learning and for training, and that what we're learning and training about is serious stuff, and that we have to maybe treat it as a different sort of space than our everyday, the rest of the spaces in our everyday lives. Of course, we always take our shoes off before entering the dojang and bowing in, another sign of respect and cleanliness. Not to turn Tang Soo Do into a religious sort of a thing, but I would say that much as some religions do some sort of bowing or genuflecting before entering a church or a place of worship, the bowing just puts you in the right mindset and is a symbol of acknowledgement that you are in a special place for a specific purpose, and that you're willing to abide by the rules and the general courtesies and practices of that setting. So after you've bowed, you would walk in, and when the class is called to line up, there's an order to that as well, that in the front row all the way to the right would be the most senior, highest ranking student. Moving down to their left would be those people in descending order of rank. And then the rows behind them, meaning all the way in the back on the far left side as you looked toward the front of the room, would be the newest or lowest ranked student of the class that day. Korean culture and certainly military culture are very rank conscious, and who outranks who or whatever. I have been in situations where I've been, let's say, at a tournament with lots of other high-ranking masters and such. And just through the years, since we mostly kind of know each other, we sort of know who did their kodanja first, second, or third. Not so easily indicated by the color of our belt or a stripe on our belt, something like that. I've been in a situation where I've looked to my left and seen someone I knew was obviously my senior, and I have politely bowed and then moved behind them to their left to push them a little bit further to the right where their position and respect is due to them. So that's the way we would line up. And again, at the beginning of class, you will hear the first command, chunbi, which is ready or ready stance. And it's just kind of an announcement, okay, get prepared, class is ready to begin. And then chariot, which is attention stance. And kinye, which is to bow. So those three things, chunbi, chariot, kinye, sort of almost flip a switch in my brain that, okay, the rest of the outside world has now gone away. I know what I'm here to do. I know what's expected of me. If I'm confused or don't know what to do, I will turn to my teachers or instructors for guidance. But in the meantime, I'm just going to do my best and follow those directions. And honestly, it takes such a weight off of me not to worry about all the rest of the clutter in my life, family, work, what I'm going to have for dinner when I get home. All those other things just tend to go away. And it's that 1 hour of time focused on the art and practice of Tang Soo Do that really gives you a mental break from the rest of your life, and I think is one of the great benefits of it. So after chunbi and chariot, the next command would be kukibare, which, although I'm probably slaughtering it in Korean, basically means salute the flag. So at our attention stance, we put our hand over our heart and we salute the flag. The American flag, of course, is the predominant one in our practice. If you're listening to this in the UK or South Africa someplace, your national flag would have the place of honor. But the Korean flag is always present on the other side because of the origin of our art. And usually in the middle, there is the association flag. And there's all sorts of symbolism involved in the the graphics involved in most associations, logos, and things like that. But once again, it's a way to just pay respect to our national origin and to the origin of this art that we participate in. Then the next command would be mukyum, which is meditation, standing with eyes closed. And to me, that's just another minute to clear my head, prepare myself mentally, physically. I take in a nice deep breath. I'll often think about something I am looking towards working on in that particular class, something that I recently have discovered I need to work on, a thing I need to change or improve, and that would be my particular focus for that class, in addition to whatever instruction the teacher has planned for us that particular day. Of course, baro, we open our eyes, chunbi again, back to ready stance, and then hwanjanim kinye, if there is a grandmaster present, and paying respect to the highest ranking teacher in the room. And then sabanam kinye, which would be bowing and paying respect to masters in the room. And then idanje kinye, which would be paying respect to the black belts. And this would all be done by the most junior student of the lower rank, I guess is the best way for me to put it. So the highest ranked, the GUP student, would do the bowing Yidanje Kinye to the black belts, and the highest ranked black belt that's not yet a master would call out the command to bow to the masters, etc. But yeah, there's definitely a hierarchy, and it's definitely somewhat militaristic. But again, at least places where I've trained, we are. It's more about respect, I think, and it's more about acknowledgement. And I think that sometimes people might hear snippets of our conversations and talk about, breaking arms or, hitting somebody in a way to cause the most damage, and might think that we're all a bunch of, violent psychopaths. But I've found that martial artists are, in general, especially Tang Soo Do practitioners, are some of the most gentle and kind-hearted and hard to press to violence sorts of people, because we do practice Tang Soo Do, and it allows us to get our aggressions out on the floor and to practice our self-control and self-discipline. And I think that makes us overall better people. So that opening sequence of chunbi, chariot, kukibare, baro, mukyum, meditation, baro, eyes open, chunbi, chariot, attention, and then bowing to all of the seniors is the way we begin our class. And then we go to an at ease position, again, taken from the military culture, hands behind the back, feet apart, and we recite the student creed. At the beginning of each class, we recite the student creed, which is as follows. I will develop myself in a positive manner and avoid anything that could reduce my mental growth or my physical health. I will develop self-discipline in order to bring out the best in myself and others. I will use common sense before self-defense and never be abusive or offensive. We are a black belt school. We are dedicated, we are motivated, we are on a quest to be our best. Tang Soo. And there's a whole lot to unpack in that simple little student creed there, but we'll take a few minutes and break it down step by step here. So there's basically 4 parts to the creed, starting with the first one. I will develop myself in a positive manner and avoid anything that could reduce my mental growth or physical health, which is a pretty good way to start. I will develop myself in a positive manner. Self-improvement, development, reflecting on your current place and trying to make yourself better seems to be one of the major goals of Tang Soo Do, at least in my life. And there's nothing wrong with that. And avoid anything that could reduce my mental growth or physical health. Notice it says avoid anything that could reduce my mental growth or physical health. I remember meeting somebody I knew from school at some sort of a fundraiser party with a glass of wine in her hand, and she said something about the creed, and I said, listen, you're not falling down drunk, you're not an alcoholic giving yourself liver damage or whatever. Will you be drinking tomorrow morning at breakfast? I highly doubt it. I think we all often indulge in food, maybe eat too much at the holidays, or watch too many videos, or streaming, or play too many video games for too long a period of time. We're only human, but I think our goal of avoiding things that could reduce our mental growth or physical health is a noble one. And just saying it a couple of times a week at the beginning of class puts me in that mindset where at least I'm trying, and at least I'm acknowledging that I might have challenges avoiding those things. All right. Second part, I will develop self-discipline. And this is pretty interesting, in order to bring out the best in myself and others. And of course, self-discipline, you would think, is very obvious, going to bring out the best in yourself by being self-disciplined and having self-control. But bringing it out in others is an interesting part of that that I always looked at and thought, like, wow. So by setting that example to the people around you and letting them know that you are reliable, and your word is good, and when you say something, you're going to do something, and that you basically have your act together, it gives them confidence in you, and it allows them to maybe be the best version of themselves. So I always thought that was interesting. I mean, certainly self-discipline is worthy, and but the idea of it bringing out the best in yourself and others has always kind of resonated with me. The next part of the student creed, I will use common sense before self-defense and never be abusive or offensive. As you learn martial arts and become, a trained martial artist, you might even think of yourself as a trained fighter. A certain responsibility comes with that, like Spider-Man with, what was that? With great power comes great responsibility, something like that Peter Parker's uncle said. Listen, we don't train in our martial arts so that we can push people around and be abusive and offensive and bully people and basically make the world a worse place. I've remember reading a similar student creed for, I want to say, a practicer of ninjutsu, and he talked about being a sheepdog. And part of their creed talked about, wherever I go, all the people around me are safer because I am nearby. And I always liked that attitude. In terms of, I'm not training to go out and beat someone up. I'm training to, put myself in a situation where I don't have to become violent. But if I do, it's definitely going to end worse for the person on the other end of it. So use common sense, use your judgment, keep your emotions in check before self-defense, and never be abusive or offensive, which is good advice, I think, to anybody trying to be a better person. The last part, just kind of almost like a school cheer. We are a black belt school. I mean, that's our goal, black belt excellence. We are dedicated, we are motivated, and we are on a quest to be our best. Nice words to be saying on a regular basis. I certainly think of my Tang Soo Do training and my school and classmates as a social outlet, as well as a physical and mental training outlet. The people I've met are awesome and have become some of my closest lifelong friends. And could you make friends in a bowling league or something like that? Absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with that. Playing basketball or some such thing. But this idea of this creed and the thoughts behind it and the intention behind it of self-improvement, and self-improvement in a manner to help others and to improve the world around you seems like a pretty laudable goal compared to other social constructs that we have, which are fine. But I think that a Tang Soo Do classroom might be a little bit better than something like those other things, softball league or some sort of thing like that, a book club. So that's the student creed that we begin at the beginning of class, and we do our little Tang Soo cheer and pump our right fist in the air. We're proud of our heritage and our style of martial arts. And then we begin our warm-ups. And like most things, there's some preparation before you can get into it. And I think we'll talk about that more in the next episode of the podcast. So now let's say it's the end of class, your training period is over. We actually do pretty much the same protocol over again at the end of class to sort of signify the end of our training period and that we're ready to go back out and face reality, our real lives outside of the dojang again. So again, call to attention, Shunbi, Chariat, Kukibare, salute the flag, Baro, Makyam, we meditate. My meditation at the end of the class is often one where at some point during the class, Master Volker or one of my instructors will have pointed out something, some little correction I needed to make, or maybe I'll have had a little epiphany myself where I said, oh, this is what I need to do, or this is something I need to improve on, through self-analysis, and just taking a minute to acknowledge that and embrace that. And I've always said to students where, we strive to train twice a week, 50-week year figure with vacations off and such, to 100 classes a year. If you can fix or correct one thing at each class, at the end of the year, you'll have fixed 100 things or made 100 improvements or corrections. And I think that's pretty good. And when you start to stack years and decades together, someone like myself, you've made a lot of improvements. Not to say you're ever all the way perfect, but that's one of the goals that we work on, trying to constant and never-ending improvement. So anyway, that second of 10, 15, 20 seconds of meditation and quiet, I take a deep breath and I try to embrace something I've learned or something I want to improve on before I totally check out of my Tang Soo Do mode, and then start thinking about what I'm having for dinner or what I have to do at work the next day, etc. So we do our meditation, we come back to attention, and then we bow to the masters. Kwanjanim, if he's on the floor, we bow to the black belts, and we do our right fist Tang Soo cheer at the end, and that's how we finish our class. Another point of protocol, and again, this may vary from place to place, but typically you're going to let your most senior, particularly if it's Kwanjanim, grandmaster, high-ranking master, you're going to let them leave the floor before you run off and go grab your shoes and head off to go home and shower and have supper or what have you. So typically after we do the fist pump, quite often Master Volker will say, dismissed, go on, get out of here, go have a good night, things like that. But sometimes he will just turn and walk off the floor quietly. And sometimes it's a little awkward because we seniors know to wait for that moment. And sometimes newer students who haven't experienced that yet, they'll start walking off the floor and we kind of have to pull them aside and say, hey, until he has bowed off the floor, we're going to hold our position at our ready stance until he leaves the floor out of a sign of respect. And then the senior-most student who's still on the floor would turn and bow to the rest of the students in a way of dismissing them. I imagine, having never been in the military, it would be something very much like if you were in formation and a general or a colonel, you saluted them and then they walked off the parade ground and then you waited for the lieutenant or the sergeant to dismiss the platoon or the whatever grouping of soldiers or sailors were. So I digress a little bit, but that is one little stickler there, is to let the senior master leave the floor while you still hold your position as a sign of respect. And, I will say one thing about the end of class is, hey, you're sweaty, you're warm, you probably have something in your mind that you just found out you need to work on. Stick around for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If you're a teenager or a youngster whose parents give you a ride, tell them, listen, instead of picking me up at 7:30, pick me up at 7:45. and give me that extra 10 minutes to work. And I have found consistently over the years that those students who hang out after class, and listen, some of us hang out and just socialize and talk, and particularly the adults, we get a little chatty at the end of class off to the side if another class is starting. But if you can find a spot in the corner of the dojang and work that jump back kick that's been giving you problems, or the frame for this particular block that you were just told you were doing incorrectly, that's a great time to try to lock in that learning you had that day. And I would say consistently the students I notice that stick around after class, they're the ones who walk away with most of the gold medals at the tournaments during tournament season, because of that extra effort they put in. So I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. I kind of doubt it. So I guess that pretty much concludes this episode, talking about the opening and I guess closing protocol and the student creed here in Tang Soo Do. And I appreciate your kind attention, and I hope you will join us for another episode on Tang Soo Do Focus. Tang Soo? Thank you once again for listening to Tang Soo Do Focus, episode number 2, Protocol and Student Creed. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoyed this podcast. Share with your friends. Tell everyone you know that might be interested. And tune in for future episodes. We appreciate your listening. Tang Soo.